There's nothing like being a parent and going out to run errands and trusting your oldest kid to take care of the house, make sure nothing happens, and then coming back to see that they have set the entire place on fire. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Chapter 5 of Shogun is here, called Broken to the Fist. I'm just going to say it out the box right now. This is so far my favorite episode of the season. And it is that way because I'm a sucker for love. Specifically, anytime a show gives me love that is um, forbidden or challenged or that has obstacles, I'm a sucker for those. And that's exactly what happens here. In this episode, we pick up right at the end of last episode, where Toranaga's son Nagakato made a very impulsive decision and made a declaration of war by shooting off cannons to Josen's people, who are there as advocates of Ishido, and we get to see the remnants of them picking up body parts. As Lord Toranaga comes charging in with a thunderous sound, you hear a massive army. He's done what he was supposed to do. He went and found an army, and he's got it. He's bringing them back to be a part of their squad. I mean, that army is deep. There's also a special guest in that army. Buntaro is not dead, which I if they don't show us the death, I'm not going to believe it until somebody shows me a body. And so Buntaro is back, and we cut to a shot of Mariko, who has seen the Holy Ghost. Shouldn't have given up the goodies so quick, Mariko. In her head, she's just thinking, "Don't be pregnant. Don't be pregnant. Don't be pregnant." There's a look in her eyes. But here's where this gets sad. There's a point here where you can just see in her eyes that for a brief moment, she had complete onus again on her life. I mean, we learn more about that as this episode goes along, but she had complete onus in her life for a brief moment. And now that is fleeting because the person that sort of kept his thumb on top of her is back. And so she has to revert back to the way that she lived before, despite having tasted that freedom. And now it's going to be hard to put the cat back on that bottle. The remaining 4 members of the Council of Regents all decide to impeach. And this isn't different. They decide that, yeah, we should impeach Toranaga. But Ishido's like, we can't do anything. He's put us in sort of a bind. We can't do anything until we find a 5th member. So they start all kind of volunteering a 5th member. And while 2 may agree to the 5th member, the other 2 are like, no, that person's scum. Nope, I'd rather eat shit. Like, you're like, well, this is like, you guys are very adamant about who you don't want to be the 5th. And because it's 2 and 2 and 4, like, it's not a number that's going to give enough votes to actually win any of these arguments. So they're still sort of at a stalemate. So no matter who they volunteer up or nominate as the next 5th member, it ain't happening. So they're still stuck. So Toranaga was smart in saying, hey, if I take myself out, it's going to take them a while to be able to actually implement a 5th person to then go through with the impeachment process. Mariko goes to talk to Toranaga and is informed that Buntaro got by the skin of his teeth, but had some help. Some Ronin jumped in to assist him and get him through. And that's at that point, she gives him like a book of play-by-play of what Blackthorn did the entire time that he was here, like how he trained, what he did, all the process, except for one piece. I'm sure in those notes, there's no part of that like, yeah, and I gave him the boots. Like, it's at that point that he asked her to remain on as interpreter. Like the plan was when he returned, everything goes back to normal and he can sort of be free, if you will. But he's like, nope, I need you to stay on as an interpreter. And now because your husband is back, I need him to stay in that house too, because I want you to basically serve both men. I need you to be his interpreter, Blackthorn's interpreter, and I need you to be the wife to your husband. All in the same roof. Boy, this just gets messier by the minute. There's nothing she can do. That's her lord, and that's how the rules have to go. Toranaga then goes to talk to Nagakato, his son, and you can tell that his son really admires Toranaga and thought that what he was doing was the correct thing to sort of have his dad's back and to be there for him. And Toranaga just simply tells him, like, you fell into a trap. Whatever happened, someone fed you something, whether it be Yabu, that's what I'm going to call him from now on, because I apparently was butchering his name. Yabu and Omi led you to believe down this path, and you thought this was the way to go, feeding into them. And you chose to think and approach this situation as a child. You didn't think of it as I would. You didn't think of it as a leader. You were a kid. For that, I'm stripping you of your rank. You're no longer the commander. And then we see a photo or an image of Josen's head being sent back to Ishido. The war is on, folks. Toranaga has gifted Blackthorn a pheasant, and in this, there's this practice where Blackthorn ties the pheasant to the front of his home and says, "Hey, leave it here. Don't touch it. Anybody touches it, it's forbidden. You'll die. Just don't." Because it's sort of a tradition for some reason for him to put that there. And yeah, it's going to reek, but it'll be good for luck, whatever. Montaro moves in and is not too pleased about it. Montaro is like, how did I get to the point where I am here with this barbarian, this scum, in his old home? It's at that point that Montaro meets up with Fuji, Blackthorn's consort, and just starts asking some questions. And some questions that leads me to believe that he is aware of what occurred here. But Montaro asks the consort, like, hey, have you lain with, like, how was it? And have you lain with him? And she's like, no, I mean, he's fine, and I like him. He is who I answer to, but I have not taken his pillow. I have not lain with him. It's like, well, that isn't who has he lain? Like, have you heard? And she's like, no, he's taken with other women, but just not with me. And it's at that point that you can sort of see the wheels in his head start turning. Like, wait a minute, there's not an abundance of women that are coming through his home. And you are betrothed to him as his consort. And if there's another woman here, something doesn't add up. So his wheels, he's he's like, there's the game afoot. Someone is trying to pull wool over my eyes. Toranaga meets with Yabu, and who is clearly still trying to play both sides. And Toranaga is well aware of this. It's like, I know that you are dipping your toe on both sides of the line. And Toranaga leans into it. He's like, no, I want you to keep doing that. I don't want you to stop being you. You keep being the deceivious, back and forth, backstabbing you, because I know who you are, and I'm trusting you as much as I possibly can. But Yabu feels like he's backed the wrong horse, and he feels like everything that he's done has sort of put ire on him because Ishido doesn't hear what he's doing or the concept that he's doing or why he's doing the things that he is. He's just in it, and he's on the side with Toranaga, kind of just SOL. Yabu throws his nephew under the bus and said he's the one who whispered sweet nothings into your son's ear to sort of get him to do this. Is at that point that Toranaga sort of flips the script on him and tells him, well, technically, that was a good idea. And it's interesting because Toranaga just read his son the right act because it did bring shame and a situation on him, but he still wants to play this. And he's like, all in all, this does sort of work out because if the battle was to take place and they went to Ishido's men would have the upper hand. But if they come to him, kind of like I have the high ground now, my Star Wars fans, they would have the shroud of cover. They would have the nowhere to come and attack, and they would have the upper hand. So it's like, well, Omi did sort of the correct thing and brought the battle to us. There's no way that they're not coming to us to attack. So here's what I want you to do. Give him command. He is now taking my son's job. I want him to have it. And Yabu's like, wait, I'm sorry, what? And it's a way that Toranaga is keeping all his enemies close and playing a game with Yabu. Like, he knows what he is, but he's keeping them at close because Yabu can't do anything at his nephew's behest. It also puts onus on Ami, who now, because he is the nephew to Yabu, it looks like Yabu is even more tied in with all of this. So Ishido, it's like, wait, your nephew is the lead of the command here. You're in on this. Like, there's nothing that you can say that's going to clear you from your name from being just in the muck with Toranaga. Yabu has to go tell Ami that, like, you are now the lead. You are the commander of this army in his own land. Like, remind you all, this is Yabu's land. And he's telling now his nephew that you were in command. And his nephew's like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry. Like I will give command to you." And Yabu's like, "Are you a fool, boy? I already run this. This is just by name, and we have to listen to what Toranaga says. But this is still my place. But yes, you are the person in charge right now. But I need you to do me a favor. Go find the spot. There's somebody in here who's talking to Toranaga, and we need to find out who that is." He also then goes send someone to go off to Ishido, like tell Ishido that I am still on his side, and I need him to be aware of that before all hell breaks loose. Because this is a mess. This is about to be just grimy. We return back to Blackthorn's home, and that pheasant is getting ripe, and the flies are starting to come in. And Mariko and Fuji, the consort, were having a conversation to discuss Bontero's return. I like this in that Fuji is aware that Mariko. It feels like she's aware that Mariko bed Blackthorn, but she's not giving that up to Buntaro. That is not what she's going to do because she is still of protection. But she does ask in this moment, "Hey, should I be concerned for Blackthorn? Like, should I be now that Buntaro's here? Should I be concerned for him?" That's her sort of way of saying, "I'm aware, not saying anything, but is he aware? Because this is about to get rough if we don't get in front of this." Mariko's like, "No, we good." And then Blackthorn shows up and sort of in his own way asks the same question, like, "Hey, should I be concerned?" And Mariko's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Like, we're fine. Everything's fine." Not fine. Buntaro and Blackthorn meet, and Blackthorn calls him Buntaro, at which point he's like, "No. You called me Toto, Lord Toto. Only my people that I am good with can call me Buntaro." And so it's like, all right, cool. And they're already off on a great foot. And then the wildest dick measuring contest sort of occurs at this dinner with the four of them. And it's a matter of Blackthorn being watched of how he eats his noodles. Taro calls him out on it, and it's to which point that Blackthorn's like, "Cool, we don't drink sake in these little small glasses. Get rid of this stuff. We drink it like men in the U.S. We take these big cups and we pour." To which Mariko and Fuji kind of like, "Well, there's a reason why we do this with small glasses. Like, we don't want you guys to get drunk in excess." Too late. Buntaro matches him for cup, and they get wasted. And then they start talking about how one's weapons are better than the other. Like, I do arrows better than you do cannons. It's a lot of posturing and showing who's the better, because Blackthorn wants to show him that and kind of just prove to Mariko that he's the better man. But Buntaro, in a way, is also doing that, saying, "Hey, I need you to understand that whatever happened while I was gone, it doesn't matter anymore. She belongs to me. She's mine." So I feel like they both know what has gone down with Mariko, and they're having a full down meltdown pissing contest right now. They get trashed, and Blackthorn wants to discuss war stories, to which Mariko's like, "This isn't a good idea. We don't want to go down this path." When Charles like, "We don't talk about war. Like, that's not something we talk about." And then he turns it, because they had the conversation about how arrows and cannons are better. He goes off to show his arrow skills, and he does it at the behest of Mariko's face. So, mind you, completely trashed, but he starts firing off arrows through a wall to one pillar. He has Blackthorn pick a pillar, either the east pillar or the west pillar, which is going to either probably be at him or at her. Picks the right, and she just starts shooting at Mariko. And it goes right through her nose. It's a cool shot that just goes by her nose, he shoots a couple of them at her. Mariko and Fuji, but Mariko really knows that this is coming already. She feels like, yeah, I see what this is. Like, he knows, and this is his way of sort of punishing me. Just like life has always been a punishment. To this point, that Blackthorn tells Buntaro, like, "Hey, I know how you guys treat your women here. You treat them as property. I get all that. Perhaps you should take some of our rules of the U.S. and treat women with a little bit more courtesy and a little bit more kindness." Which is a little bit funny, knowing that from the U.S., especially at that time, women weren't treated that well. But that's another story. They're treated much better than the property that they were sort of treated as here. That sets Buntaro off. And he's like, "Cool. Real quick, Mariko, can you tell this mofo who you really are?" And then she goes into detail about how she wound up in this situation. Now, mind you, this is important. She didn't have to tell him in this moment, in theory, because that Buntaro doesn't understand what is actually being translated to Blackthorn. She could have told a lie. However, I think the reaction that Blackthorn and the reaction that she had would have been a telltale for Buntaro to say, "Hey, she's not telling you everything. She's not telling you the truth." Um, but in that, we find that her father, her actual father, was an assassin who killed the lord that was in place before Tycho. And in that was caught, and his repercussions was to murder all of his family, so kill Mariko's mom, siblings, and then himself. And in that, the what happened to Mariko was she has been forced to live through this and live as the property of Buntaro. So her lot in life is that I'm forcing you to stay alive, and you can't take vengeance on anybody. You just have to live in this and be this piece of property for me. Um, and it's at that point she excuses herself. She has to leave. She's like, I can't be here. That night, Blackthorn wakes up hearing Mariko being abused, getting hit, blood coming down her face. She's getting beat up, treated like the property that Buntaro believes that she is. It's also Buntaro's sort of way of putting her back in her place. Like, look, I don't know. I know what occurred. No one's going to say anything. And like, here's the thing. As Buntaro does know what happened, he does feel like the two of them have slept together. There's two things that can't happen. He can't talk about it because if he does, he's going to feel like he's going to look like less than a man into this community. He can't say anything to him. He also can't touch Blackthorn because he's under Lord Toranaga, and Lord Toranaga has put this higher command on Blackthorn, so he can't actually take any type of vengeance out on him. So he's kind of just in this, but in this, he's making it really hard on all parties to live. Blackthorn goes to check on Mariko. She's in a bad way. He goes to confront Buntaro. Buntaro lays down his sword and says, basically, apologizes, if you will, and he blames the sake, which I call BS. Yes, he's drunk, but if a man is able to shoot that arrow as well as he was in that moment, he was well enough to not beat the crap out of his woman based on sake. That's something he chose to do. And he wanted to do as a way to say, hey, you might be over me, you might be have some protections, I may be in your home, but she's still mine, and I can still do with her however I choose. Toranaga meets with a gentleman named Aquino, who he informs that Yabu's looking for a spy. And Aquino happens to be the spy that actually is for Toranaga, but no one is aware of that. And Aquino says, hey, I will surrender to him. And Toranaga's like, that's nonsense. You will do no such thing. What you will do is find another person to use as a scapegoat as a spy. Thank you. Please go do that. And he's like, all right, that's what I'm off to do. Blackthorn wakes up to go look for Mariko. Now, mind you, as he leaves, that pheasant that's out there is just wreaking havoc. It's just causing, it smells, there's flies all over the place. It's not in a good way. Blackthorn goes to go look for Mariko, who's off, sort of contemplating life. And in that, they have a really heartfelt moment, a part that just felt like this is the part that got me. I was like, love. She immediately says that they shouldn't be seen together. So it gives off that a couple of people are aware of the situation. Basically, people in that house. And it's at that point that Blackthorn says, like, you shouldn't be like this. You're burying your true self. Like, you are living in a spot where you're not showing anger towards Buntaro for what has occurred, and you're not showing vengeance towards him, and you're just kind of living in this sort of shell of who you are, and you're not free. And that's not a way to live. That's not a way that anybody should live. At that point, Mariko says, if freedom is what you live for, then you'll never truly be free, which is a dope ass line. But if that is always what you're seeking, you're never going to be a point where you're completely free. Like, there's always going to be something that is over you, whether it be job, somebody is going to be the boss compared to you. So freedom is not something to seek, according to her, because that's never going to be achievable. To that point where she says, and you can see that she's heartbroken by this, but she's like, I will continue on as your translator, but from this moment forward, the only words that will come from my lips will be from someone else. You're not going to hear any other words that are from me. And she takes off. And it's sad. It's bullshit, but it's sad. There's no, like, she's gotten that taste now. And there's no way that she's not going to still want to be around in some way with Blackmore. She just can't. And now it's going to be even harder. Like I said, she's gotten that taste. She's opened the cap off that bottle. So even though with Buntaro there, the idea of vengeance is going to be stronger for her, not necessarily because she wants to avenge her family. That part she's sort of killed and sullied enough. It's still there, but more because she wants to be free and sort of make decisions on her own. Ujiro, who's the gardener of the of Blackthorn's place, he was one very complaining about the smell of the pheasant. He took down the pheasant. And so when Blackthorn returns, everybody's a little solemn, a little sad. And they're kind of like, what? And Blackthorn's like, what the hell is going on? And at that point, Fuji says that that Ujiro took down the pheasant. And he's all right, cool, that's all, no biggie. And the pheasant should have probably come down. Like, it's stupid. And he's very nonchalant and very caring about it. It's at that point that Fuji lets him know that I had to kill him. Wait, I'm sorry, what? And it's like, yeah, you said that it was forbidden. And so as your consort, I had to kill him. And Blackthorn's like, what is wrong with you people? Like, it's a freaking bird. She's ready to lay down her life for that, and he just tells them all to go away. It's like, no one's dying for this. Enough people have died. Like, why did you kill this man for this? Like, he was just an old man. Everybody get out of here. So he just tells them all to flee, and then he goes to go see Toranaga. While he's there, Mariko is already there. Mariko tells Toranaga of the incident that occurred between she and Buntaro. It's like, yeah, Buntaro beat me up. And Toranaga shows you how property is and how women work here. But so I'll have a talk with Buntaro basically, because I don't care what he does with you as his wife. You are his wife, so he can do whatever he wants to. But you're also my translator, so yeah. Which is great. It's like, you can do whatever you want with the wife. That don't affect me. But because she's my translator, there's going to let me holler at him. I'll talk to him real quick. Blackthorn arrives and tells Toranaga, like, hey, I completed my stuff. Can I get my ships? Can I get my boat? And can I get the hell up out of Japan? Because he, at this point, one, with Mariko treating him the way he is, separating himself, he's like, well, I'd like to be here for her, but if she doesn't want me, then I'm out. And your practices and your rules and the way you guys do things is insane. And I don't want any parts of it. Like, you guys are killing a gardener for shits and giggles. And Toranaga's like, I don't know about this gardener. I don't know about this mess. This sounds insane. You guys fix this. And he steps off and kind of just goes and listens to the distance. It's important to note that when he asks for his leave of Japan, Mariko pauses a bit. She doesn't quite want to translate that piece. It just shows you that she's a little broken about, like, hey, I know what I just said to you, but I don't want you to go. And there was that moment of like, crap. Okay. Blackthorn, while Toranaga goes off to kind of just contemplate in the distance, Blackthorn and Mariko have a bit of a conversation. He's like, they killed the gardener. Like, that's insane. Mariko's very cold about it. Like, look, can't dwell on the past. What done is done. Sorry. Like, that is what it is. It's like, things are very matter of fact in this world. I don't live in the world that you do. We live, we die. We control nothing beyond that. And that's accurate, because then an earthquake occurs. An earthquake that pretty much rocks the village. And rocks Toranaga, who goes sliding down the cliff. Basically, we can't see him. And immediately Blackthorn springs to action, goes to go rescue and save him, and does so. With the help of other men, but he is the first one out, saves him. It's also important to note that Toranaga lost his swords in this moment, which Blackthorn immediately gives him the one that Fuji gave to him. He gives to him as sort of an honor. And it's a pretty big piece and shows you even more that who this man is. Mariko falls even deeper in love. You can see in her eyes, like, oh. And Toranaga's like, this guy's the real deal. Like, I'm a big fan. The village is pretty damned. They go back to check out things. Fuji's badly injured. Not dead, but she's pretty badly injured. But yeah, that village is in a bad way. While this is happening, Yabu and Omi go to find the spy's hideout. And in that, Akino uses the gardener that was killed as the person who's the spy. Convenient, smart. To which, I mean, dead men tell no tales, so you don't have to worry about that guy being the person. So he gets to live on as the spy for a little bit longer. And the last piece is Lady Ochiba, who had to be brought all the way back from Lord Toranaga's village, returns to Osaka and immediately calls out Ishido and their incompetence of being able to impeach Toranaga and keep her son safe to be the next heir. She's like, things are moving a little too slow here, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the head of the table. Y'all step aside. I got this from here. Y'all answer to me. And that's how the show ends. Fantastic episode. So far, like I said, my favorite episode because just the two scenes of um, Blackthorn, Fuji, and Mariko at the dinner table. That's fantastic. That's a amazing scene. And the sequence subsequently afterwards where Mariko kind of has to break up with Blackthorn is heartbreaking. But you know that that's not going to last. It's clear that I feel Buntaro is aware of what occurred, but he's like, nope, that doesn't matter because he treats her like trash. He doesn't care about her, but it's like, she's mine. So this is my piece of property. You can't have her anymore. And like I said, he can't do anything because he's sort of stuck in this middle land. The game is still being played, and it's going to be interesting to now see this new chess piece put on the board with Lady Ochiba and how she seems to be about that business. And a mother trying to protect her son and thinking that she's doing what's best for her heir, all bets are off. And so it's going to the sort of hamstrongingness that has been happening with the council. I think that's a wrap from this point on. And I think the performance of this episode, I haven't done this yet, but the performance of this episode is Mariko. Like, she is killing it. Seeing both a moment of longingness, complete and total terror from what's happening with Dara, and then a heartbreak and having to relive and tell that story to a person who in her eyes, she wanted him, he looked at her away. And he's like, I want her to, she didn't want to tell the story because he viewed her as something more than property. And this story is going to devalue, she feels is going to devalue herself to him. It's not, he doesn't care because these things don't mean much to him. The rules of engagement that happen here don't mean anything to him. Just like Gardner having to be killed. She's like, I don't particularly know or care about what's happening. I like you. She's like, this means a lot to me, and me telling the story is probably going to make you look at me differently. And it doesn't. But she doesn't quite get that yet. She will. But yeah, what did you guys think about the 5th chapter of Shogun? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDid@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. There's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.